Hey, good evening, everyone. Bob Zagami here with John DePietro and our special guest, Ben Hirsch, and welcome to RVing in New England. I apologize. We had a little difficulty, technical stuff on Facebook's end at 7, so we're going live now, and hopefully we're going to make it through the whole hour.
We'll make it through.
Any comments, John?
We'll make it through. No, you know what? We had more time off air to talk with Ben, and the thing that's most interesting about the whole campers in story. Did I get it right? Campers in RV story. I got to be technically correct. Is the way it started. And Bob, why don't you introduce Ben with his proper title, and then I'll go ask him to go right into that answer about. I understand that it was thought up by 3 people at Harvard Business School. That
Ben
is that the story?
Ben is the 3rd generation Hirsch to be on the executive leadership team. And good news, guys, we're getting comments from our fans, so we are live and in good stead. So, Ben, I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself and the role that you play at Campers Inn. Then I'll tell my story. I still want to tell my story, but go ahead.
So I'm 3rd generation in the business. My grandparents, Art and Fran Hirsch, started Campers Inn in 1966, and they started because of a bad customer experience that they had. So my grandfather was a machinist by trade. He was a scoutmaster, and my grandmother would go with their 3 boys whenever they went to Boy Scout outings, right? And she was sick and tired of sleeping on the ground. That's the story as I've heard it. So she said something like, Art, we're going to get a camper. That's what I want to stay in. Okay, great. So they go to the local RV dealership, and my grandfather, the whole family's there. He's wearing his machinist outfit, and they really didn't give him the time of day. He felt like they judged him based on what he was wearing, didn't think he could afford anything. So he told the family, get back in the car. And they're surprised. They're like, we're here to buy an RV. What are we getting back in the car for? And on the ride home, he said, we can do better. And we can do a better job for our customers. So that's how we got started, was just a simple, wanting to go camping with the family, wanting to change how they went camping, bad experience. And our family's been doing it for over 50 years now, running the business. Started out in Acton, Massachusetts. That's where we started. Personally, I was 3rd generation in the business. For several years, I went to the Acton Boxborough school system. The bus would drop me off at the dealership. So I grew up washing RVs, stocking shelves. I was telling Bob and Joe this. I put those Campers Inn stickers on the back of the brochures when we were getting ready for shows. So
you didn't have to lick them. They were the kind that they already had the sticky stuff on them, right?
Sometimes some of them we had to lick them. It was crazy. So,
well, and I always tell my story, and it goes way back to 1978 when I purchased my first RV, and I used to go by the lot in Acton and visit with the family and dream about buying a motorhome. And I wanted a mobile traveler, which most of you, maybe Andy Parr will remember them, maybe Sue Flanders. Hey, Sue, how you doing?
But Bob, are you implying they're old?
Well, no, but if you remember Mobile Traveler, you were old, and I wanted to buy a Mobile Traveler from the Hirsch family.
No wonder we got shut off.
It was $20,000. I only had $15,000, so I wound up buying a Rockwood from Campus Showcase up in New Hampshire from Ray and Joe Walsh. But I used to go by and look at that Mobile Traveler. I'd take my wife by, and that was the one we wanted. So my first RV was almost a Campers Inn, but I bought several from Campers Inn along the way. Ben, let me just tell you who's on with us tonight. Scott Nichols is on. He's from Marshfield. Andy Parr, the Gadget Guru. Thank you, Andy, for joining, and thank you for sticking with us. Andy was the first one to send me a note saying, did I take a day off here? Marie Galante Moore. Good evening, fun. The Bluffs from the Bluffs in Freedom, New Hampshire. And Mrs. Flanders is on, and welcome to the Campers Inn family, Mrs. Flanders. Where is your husband? New England.
I bet you I know what it is.
But
Bruce or Derek don't know how to get on by themselves, so they have their wives get them on the internet. I'll bet you
that could be it. Estelle Drew is on. Bought my last Estelle's a longtime fan of ours, Ben. She says she bought my last 3 campers from Campers Inn. Great place to do business and great people. Will buy my next one from them also. Well, Ben's ready. Just bring your checkbook down. Estelle, he'll take care of you. Walter Burns from Easy Care, one of our associate members, just did a tour through New England, talking to our dealers about the Easy Care protections and insurance programs. Thanks for joining us, Walt. Michael Lekarnik, always done business with Forrest Marine. Awesome place, great people. Jerry Plant's on from Majors RV in Cape Cod, and Derek Flanders figured out his computer all by himself. He said, I'm on here.
Yeah, not Bruce. Not Bruce.
Yeah. Let's talk about that breaking news, Ben. That kind of lit up the airways this week. And, what I like about it is you were in Acton, Mass. With your first store. You got 27 dealerships out there. And this week you buy number 28. And guess what? It's only 25 miles from the first store. So take it away.
Yeah, so it's actually a great story. So, we have nothing but really great things to say about Forrest RV and the Flanders family. So they actually have been around as a dealership in New England longer than Campers Inn. So 7 years longer than us. So they predate us in New England, 2 of the longest running dealerships in New England. The truth is probably I view it as like friendly competition for a long time. Known their family, for me personally, known of them. But I know Jeff Hirsch, my uncle, the current CEO of Campers Inn, knew Bruce, knew Sue, and that's just how the conversation kind of started. What would it look like if kind of we came together? And so I got to meet them personally recently, and can't say enough good things about them. Really excited. The team has a ton of knowledge. It's obvious that they really care about their customers, want to take care of them, and they're a great fit to the Campers Inn family.
They are, but I have to ask you, you're not going to get rid of the fireplace in the store or Dega's rug in front of the fireplace, are you?
No, so we're actually going to right now. So we're in the transition phase, right? So right now our plan is that we're going to keep it as Forrest RVs, a Campers Inn RV company, or something to that extent. We don't want to lose the culture that they have there. They have a great thing going. They have a great brand in Jayco. Jayco is very well known in New England, been around a long time. So we want to keep that piece of it going and really just add them to the Campers Inn team.
Okay, but then the most important question that people are going to ask tonight is, will they still be able to go to Forrest and buy lottery tickets?
Sure. Yes. Yes.
They are our only nerve. They are our only nerve to dealer with a lottery operation in the dealership, and it's funny. They get a lot of traffic out of that, and they did have one person win the lottery one time to buy an RV, so that was great. Ronnie Leiberger joined us from Bradford RV. Chris Ando, I thought I just saw.
Yeah,
Chris is on from Hemlock Hill. He says, hello, Ben. Jerry Plant says, I've inspected units at Forrest. They do a good job getting campers ready to sell. They do a fantastic job. They didn't do a lot of advertising. They just had, well, much like yourselves, multiple, and we're so fortunate in New England to have so many family-owned dealerships that go through multiple generations of ownership. And guess what? Multiple generations of customers, because they all grew up together.
Yeah. Frank Cage sent us a term paper over here.
Nah, he's just putting down some of my quotes on
we should tell people, Bob, that even though in your mind you've been a national celebrity in the RV industry for years and years and years, it was verified this week when the Wendlands invited you and 23 other of the top national influencers in the entire North American area to give us their views on what's happening in camping for next year. Now, I'm going to put one of your points to Ben and see if he agrees with it. And Ben, one of the points that Bob said was these next few months are very, very important because with the influx of new people into the lifestyle, now it's important to deal with them from a service level, from a warranty level, from a answer their questions now that they've got one season under their belt. There's a huge learning curve, I'm sure you'd agree, in operating the RV after you go through the rigmarole of buying one and getting it registered, but using it at the campground. And there are newbies that we've heard crazy stories where they didn't realize they had to empty their tank, that tank that with the hose down the bottom. Are you guys going to make a special effort to take special care of those new people so that they stay in the industry and not say the hell with it and sell it and say, I don't want to have anything to do with RVing?
It's such a good question. It's an action-packed question. I hope I don't ramble on the answer. So for sure, this is something that the manufacturers and the dealers are talking about and have been talking about since we saw the real spike sometime in June. It's been a huge concern because we saw the demand for RVs just way outstripping the supply, right? And that's why, if there's customers listening to this, you can probably and there's half or less than half the inventory that a dealer normally has because we just can't get them in fast enough. Manufacturers can't create them fast enough, and that first-time buyer is a huge piece of that. So a lot of us dealers and the manufacturers are trying to do a bunch of different things. And I can speak for Campers Inn, some of the things that we're doing. We're opening up a pre-prep center in Elkhart, Indiana, because we know that if we can get RVs ready for the ultimate sale in Elkhart, it actually frees up our frontline stores to do more of the service needed for the customer.
Before they get across 1,000 miles over to the East Coast.
Exactly. So that's been something that we saw, and we said there's going to be a huge amount of customers that need our help, and we need to free up our frontline stores. So that's one way we're doing it. We also, through COVID, we started seeing this, and we have 3 service directors that oversee multiple stores in our company, and I've been working with them hand in hand to really improve our, and without getting technical, but our customer satisfaction scores and our efficiencies internally. Because that is one of our concerns, is that it's not like all these new technicians are entering the industry. Right. So what do we have to do? We have to make sure we're taking care of the customers with the techs that we have, training new techs. My service call today, we spent almost half of the call talking about our certification program for new techs coming in the industry with RVTI's new certifications. But it is a challenge. But I think the industry is stepping up. I know us as a dealer, we're working with our manufacturer partners. There's no question we're all committed to keeping the customers in the industry, but it's a full court press right now because we're having to expand our capacity beyond what we've seen previously. So
and the consequences are not good if you don't live up to the expectations of the buyer.
Yeah. Jump in there for a couple of things. 2 things that really caught my attention there, Ben. One is the pre-delivery facility in Elkhart. That's brilliant. But also, if you catch something wrong there, you drive down the street and pick up the part or get it fixed or have somebody come over from the factory versus taking it 1,000 miles across country, finding out something's wrong, opening up the warranty claim, waiting for the part to come in. So that puts a lot of emphasis on the prepping at that point. The other is because you have this facility, or will have, is it open now in Elkhart?
It is opening. We're actually hiring the team, and it's opening this month, so October.
Okay, so then, because we've got this new initiative with RVTI, who's going to be training people, and a lot of that will be, once we get past the COVID, will be in place in Elkhart, and it will be returning military people, it'll be retired people. They don't have to go too far for a new job, do they?
No, not at all.
They just go down the street to your facility.
And to your point on the first point, one of the benefits of having that facility is the manufacturers really do want to provide a good customer experience. They really do want that to be favorable. So we're talking to the manufacturers, and they are really willing to help us in this endeavor. Just like you said, go pick up the part so that we don't have to ship the part 1,000 miles, whether it's to Florida or New England or North Dakota. We have some stores that are really far away from Elkhart, and it makes so much sense just to take care of it right there before they get to our stores that are in states.
I think it's going to be very interesting with some of the stories that your people are going to have to tell, because, as they're inspecting, these are product that you've already bought from the manufacturer, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to, look at them right then and there, because you hear horror stories of some of the brands that are throwing product together quicker than they should because of the demand, because, the customer wants, especially in the Northeast, the customer wants that in June and July, not in October and November, to have it sit for 6 months. We should check back with you and hear the craziest stories.
Yeah. Let me just see who else.
After we learn some, for sure, it is happening where there's units getting put together quickly. But the challenge in our industry isn't just that they're getting put together quickly or there's an intent to just throw them together. A lot of times, what's interesting is that there's a unit that's all but completed except for a window or an air conditioner or something that's there right now because of the supply chain issues. And that means that they have to go back as a manufacturer and almost remanufacture whatever that last 3, 4, 5, 10% is that they missed. And there's going to be more, I hate to say more errors. I'm not trying to make an excuse for them, but it's the reality of a COVID-19 supply chain issue that's a global issue with our industry that is in really heavy demand right now. So
the other thing that it does also, Ben, is when the parts come in, they have to take these units and bring them back through the manufacturing line, which stops the manufacturing line from producing the current ones on the line that have to get out to dealers. So there's another additional delay for units for the consumers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey,
what?
We should take a second to tell our viewers that next week, right here on this show at the same time, no, not the same time, a half hour earlier, but we'll have Kurt Heimler, who's the executive director of RVTI, with us. Do I have that date right, Bob?
Yes. Yeah. He is on for October 21. He'll be going over the new certification programs, which, why don't you talk a little bit about that, Ben? We've been criticized as an industry, not criticized, but we all recognize that we don't have enough technicians. But talk a little bit about RVTI and how you're incorporating into making sure you've got enough technicians nationwide.
Yeah. So I don't want to cover what he's going to cover next week, but long story short is the industry recognized that there's this shortage of techs. They've recognized that the former certification process wasn't exactly what we needed, so they revamped it. And the technicians are now different levels, and the way we go ahead as a dealership and get them certified is different as well. So what we're doing is we're looking at, there's trainers and mentors, and we have to have trainers and mentors on staff internally. If we're going to do internal certifications for a company like ours, that makes sense for us.
It does, yep. The partnership program, yep.
Exactly, yep. And that's how we're going to go after this, and we're going to make sure that we get literally all of our technicians in the process. Now, as a company, we already have most of our technicians before RVTI, came out with these different levels. There was registered, certified, and master certified. We had it as a goal within the first 90 days for every technician to be at least registered. Didn't always get there, but that was our goal. And now we're going to be doing the same thing with the level 1 through wherever it goes, the trainer level 4 on the RVTI new certification program. So it's a good program, but there's a learning curve for all of us out there because it's new.
Yeah, and we're all challenged with that. So we're going to kick that off next week and let people know. Let me get caught up on here. Ernie Fitz joined us. Congratulations to both parties. Exciting news. Ernie's another associate NERDA member with the Outdoor Comfort Center. And are you done hunting and fishing, Ernie, and you want to get back to business, or are you done for the season and we'll see you back in the spring? Andy Parr says, with the burst of RV sales, not just due to COVID, but since the economy recovered, are RV dealerships increasing service capacity? Andy, do you mean service hours, or service capacity is hiring more techs? But what about from a operational standpoint, Ben? Are you seeing the need to have 7-day service or service at night? Are you leading the charge there for something different?
Yeah, so we for sure. So when COVID was at its peak, we reduced hours, obviously, because we didn't know what it was going to look like. We've expanded our hours to normal hours at this point. Capacity, it's such an interesting discussion. Just like you said, Bob, you could have capacity issues because of the number of techs. You can have capacity issues because of the hours that you're open. You can have capacity issues because of your facility, right? So we're attacking that in a few different ways. I mentioned the techs, trying to recruit and retain more techs. But our company as a whole right now, without getting into all the nitty gritty details, we have a ton of real estate projects going on because we see that there is.
Ben, Andy just added service bays. That was his question. Are you adding service bays? And,
yeah.
And maybe when we talked during the time we were off the air, the prep area in Elkhart would free up some of the real estate at your existing facilities that were used for prep work to now be dedicated to service, because all of service doesn't mean you need a lift for the vehicle.
And 100% correct. So I would say that that's going to be half the solution. The other half of the solution is, as we've grown, we've sometimes we go into a facility that's not the facility we eventually want or we acquire, and so we need to build new facilities. For any of the customers in New England that have been by our Union, Connecticut facility, what we opened up with is very different than the facility we have today.
Right.
So those sorts of projects, we have them going on in a whole bunch of states, in a bunch of different markets, and we're going to be adding. I haven't counted it, but probably dozens and dozens of bays over the next 24 months. I don't know how many it is, but it's a ton. Exactly for this reason, we see service as really important as we head forward. The other piece of it is RVs aren't getting any simpler; they're actually getting way more complicated.
That's true.
The electronics.
Yeah, the electronics, the systems they put in. Even if you look at like AquaHot systems on motorhomes, they're all way more complicated than they used to be. So that requires more time for us to have that capacity.
Okay, so putting a little New England flavor to it, I know one of the things that you're doing differently this year that's getting a lot of attention, you're doing drive-through winterizing at most of your facilities. Tell us a little bit about that and how you hope that's going to help speed up that process for your customers.
Yeah, so it's almost like a process of stages is the idea of it. And we just want to increase the throughput because, kind of back to the original comment, there's so many new RVers out there, and we're legitimately afraid that a lot of them don't know how to winterize their RVs, even though there's a lot of videos, or they don't want to, right? They don't want to do it themselves.
Right.
So we want to figure out a way to take care of the customer base without inconveniencing them and making them wait 2 weeks when you might have a frost or those sorts of things. So our service directors were really creative in working with our service managers at the stores in saying, how do we get the most throughput for winterizations? And they came up with this idea, and I think it's going to be great.
I think so.
That's a very interesting concept, because I know that McDonald's used to do that, and somebody else down in that area. Oh, Majors, the same thing, where you drive in and they would do it right then and there. But Ben, one of the questions that I posed on, I think it was RV Tips, and we had the owners of that RV group on here not too long ago. They've got 193,000 Facebook members in that particular group. And I just asked the question, when it comes to winterizing, do you bring it to a dealer or do you do it yourself? And the vast majority of the people said, I do it myself. Now, I have watched my unit get winterized, and I said, there's no way I'm going to try that myself, because if there's one thing that you miss, or don't blow out the water that or take the water out of the hot water tank, it's thousands of dollars in damage. The fact that you're making it easier, I think, is good, because, again, with the newbies, the people that will be going into their first winter, they're going to think that, well, you know what? I drained all the water out of the low point drain, but that's not all the water that's in the unit. And in New England, I mean, what are we now? The 14th of October?
Yep.
Any day now. I mean, we could get a frost, and then the next day, be an air conditioner day. But talk about trying to do something like that yourself and the consequences of missing something, even if you go to YouTube and look at a video.
Yeah. So if you go to YouTube, just make sure it's a reputable source. I think that's where I would start. So I'm not trying to self-promote too much, but we do have some winterization, de-winterization videos, but I would start with a reputable dealer or a reputable manufacturer, not just, the guy down the street that decided to winterize his unit one year. Just because, for example, we actually have a real technician showing how we winterize, right? That's how we do it on YouTube. But to your point, a small miss on something, like in the water heater, if you don't get the water out and it does freeze and it bursts, that's expensive. And the challenge, especially in New England and in the northern stores, is that here's what typically happens, right? April comes along, starting to get warm out. We make some campground reservations for May, but we don't look at the RV until the first week of May. And then we realize that the water heater's blown out. And you try to get in for service, and I get it from the customer's perspective, they're backed up. And because the challenge that we have is that it's not this way in the South, right? We have stores all over in the South. You don't have this huge spike right before mid-May, Memorial Day, that sort of thing. You do in the Northeast. And so what often happens is there's this huge demand, and it could be something as simple as a bad winterization can keep you from camping, and could keep you from camping for a month out of your camping season, which is a really big deal.
Well, it could be even longer because, like you say, it's seasonal and everybody wants it at the same time. And they think that they should be at the head of the line. I do have an important question to answer from a young lady named Julie Palazzo. She says, "What are you drinking, Bob?" Julie, if you have to ask what I'm drinking, your stature and my respect for you as the professional sales person that you are at Forrest RVs and Marine goes down quite a bit.
But,
so I'm going to forgive you for asking it. So Dan Craffy's on from Lead Trailer Sales, and Andy Passes, or what? What, John?
Bob, she asked you that question not because she saw you drinking something. She asked you must be drinking based on the questions you're asking. And Ben, I'm sure you've noticed so far that most of the cerebral questions come from me, and just the fluff stuff comes from him.
All right, so Chris, wait a minute. Chris Andrews says the good news about the tech shortage is the industry is really working together toward the same goal. Best I've seen in my 36 years. Fun to be part of. 36 years. He's just a kid, I mean, he's just a kid. But we should say, and I want to give him to Chris gives back a lot to the industry, and as you know, Ben, he's the incoming chair. As soon as we get this virtual RVDA convention out of the way here, the first part of November, Chris Andrews heading up the whole pack nationwide, right?
I was about to say the same thing, is that he gives back a lot to the industry. So
hold on. Let's bring this topic up here, because that screen down there says nation's largest family-owned dealership group. Okay. Now, Jeff was RVDA chairperson, and Chris will, but they both come from family businesses. Now, Ben, you're third generation. You've been in the business. You're younger than a lot of the people that, that we talk to on this show. What are talk about the challenges of a family business? Because there are times when, if you're in a corporate thing, you can tell somebody what you think and fire them and stay off my property. In the family, it's a little bit different, because you may have a disagreement at work, and then the next day you're at a family event. Do you encounter any of those special things? And maybe Chris can weigh in on that as well.
I'm sure he can.
I bet he can.
So my background, just so the audience kind of knows. So I've also had a military career, or 8 years in the military. Went to West Point, and then was in the Army for 8 years. So I got to experience not a corporate, but a big organization background, right? And then came to a family business. And I can tell you there's positives and negatives. And you're 100% right. In like the military, you didn't have to worry about that dynamic at all. If you had two brothers and they happen to be in the same unit, who cared, right? It really didn't matter at all. So there can be a positive there, but there's some huge positive and tangible benefits of a family business. And it's actually a huge attraction for us as a family business for a lot of our employees is that we're not driven by short-term financial results, and the family's not. Our whole family's not. And I'm blessed. We have Jeff, my uncle, is the CEO. He's the CEO. My dad is currently a sales director for a lot of the South. I'm in my role in kind of leading operations. My wife works in the business in admin and HR. My three cousins are all in the business now, Jeff's kids. So we have a bunch of family in the business, but I think that's a benefit. I actually really enjoy it because we all deeply care about the future of the business. We care about keeping the legacy that my grandparents started, which was that bad customer experience, and trying better every day. And we're not perfect and we make mistakes. But really trying to make sure that we do that every day is important. And the family carries that on. And that will always be way more important than, did we make our numbers this month? Did we make our numbers this year? That long-term legacy. Because we're not going anywhere. As a family, we're not looking to cash out. The Hirsch family is staying in the RV business. That's where we want to be. So are there sometimes more challenges that come with having multiple family members and trying to figure that piece out? I would say yes, that of course there are challenges. But if the family cares about each other and they're open and they communicate, you can generally move on from that. It's not insurmountable, but it requires you to have the same vision in mind. And I think the Hirsch family has the same vision in mind. We know what our goals are. We know what we're heading towards. And as long as we keep that in mind, the day-to-day things that happen where one of us are, say something stupid to one of the other ones, we can overlook that. We can get by it.
Are you the only husband-wife combo? Because many times I've seen other family businesses when the person who married into the family got into it, for some reason or another, the dynamics were a little bit different. Have you come to any of those issues?
So we are currently, but my Aunt Debbie has worked in the business many times. My mother has worked in the business, so it's not abnormal, I guess.
Okay.
But I mean, if you're asking if there are challenges, sure. I mean, it's how do you turn off work and turn on family, and that's probably the biggest challenge that it brings. But at the same time, you have a lot to talk about, so I guess that's good.
Thanksgiving dinners must be fun. Turn it to a little bit lighter fare. You, I know even when you're in New England, we're very willing to give back in the community. It's something that all of our NRVA dealers do. But talk about some of your relationships. I know you've got a hookup with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You probably wish it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but tell us a little bit about what you're doing outside in the community.
Yeah, we've done partnerships with different organizations over the last few years, and trying to figure out who and what makes the most sense with us as an organization. The Jags have been one. We've also done some local teams like. Oh my gosh, the Icemen, the Jacksonville Icemen, which is like their local, and I forget what they call it, a AA or AAA hockey league or whatnot. And they have ice in
Jacksonville. Wait a minute, they have ice in Jacksonville?
Indoors.
Oh, that kind of ice. Okay.
We sponsor Larry Fleet. He's a really great country singer, and we also are a sponsor of Kevin Harvick, who's a NASCAR racer. So we do a lot of different things, and I would say those are kind of like the brand piece of it, making sure that we're just front of mind with our customers and making sure that they understand that we're part of the communities, right? So each one of these is like the Carolinas for the Carolinas, obviously, the things we do in Jacksonville for Jacksonville. And that's important to us. But what we don't really advertise a ton as an organization is the huge number of super local things that we do. And what I mean by that is our Kings Mountain, North Carolina location every year does a bicycle drive for kids around Christmas. Several of our locations are the Toys for Tots locations for their community. around that same Christmas time. I mean, we really try to be part of our communities that we live in. That's important to us. It's actually part of our core values. It's ingrained in us.
Interesting. It's interesting. And I think family businesses understand that more than the big corporates, because they'll just come in and say, look, we can't join every chamber of commerce. We can't give to every food pantry. We can't give to every local facility and get away with it that way, where obviously you're doing it differently.
Well, let me ask you something else, Ben, because when I was doing my research, I actually do research on this program to see I found these pictures of
you never know it by the question you ask.
Oh, you found them, huh?
Ben's trip around the country, or Ben's tour of the dealerships, and it looks like it wasn't just Ben. Tell us a little about this tour that you took, and it looks like you took the family with you.
Yeah, so a couple summers ago, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it was.
You can drop me down and make that picture bigger if you want.
Yeah, I can do that.
So my wife and I just were talking, and the blessing of her, my job in operations, I oversee all the different regions, and Lori's job in HR is that we can do it on the road, not for long periods of time, but for some period of time. So we talked, and we bought a reflection travel trailer, as you can see here. And what we did is we decided to travel to almost all of the stores. And I remember there was a couple stores we didn't hit, but if I remember right, we hit like 16 stores in 3 weeks. And we visited, and the kids sat in the back of the truck as we were going, and we stayed at campgrounds. We stayed at some of our dealerships. We couldn't make it to a campground. We'd say, "Hey, nobody's open. Can you leave us the gate open when we arrive?"
Right.
Exactly.
Unannounced visit.
No, they knew. It was so funny. We didn't announce it at first, right? But once we started heading out,
they all called.
Word spread.
They all called.
So guess who showed up with his family this morning?
Exactly. So by the time we arrived, so at the time, our kids, our 2 girls and our son, were 10, 8, and 6. They're 12, 10, and 8 now. So that was a great trip, a blast.
John Clark will be happy to see that Grand Design unit there.
Yeah.
Well, it's also nice, you know. We all know sometimes there's owners that don't go camping, and they don't, drive their vehicles. They sell them, but it's nice when people actually get out there and talk to your employees, talk to the customers in the campgrounds, and get that perspective of what they view of the industry, because their perspective of what's right and wrong may be different than what our perspective is on it.
So
we're a camping family. Jeff has gone camping with his family. He currently owns a motorhome. My parents have a travel trailer that they use. My family, we're in between RVs right now, so we had the reflection. We've debated on what's next. Yeah, we go camping. We have issues like everybody else does. If it makes you feel any better, we have our fair share of issues, and I have the.
You may have issues, but I got a funny feeling when you call the service department, you may get a little bit better service.
It is possible that there are some advantages, but yeah, I mean, we had like the things that happen to everybody, where the water heater goes out because the circuit board just goes out. I mean,
did you have the little decal on the back of the unit?
Of course.
So this picture I found, it's a couple of years old, but one of the things that
there's Sherm.
Campers Inn has been a top 50 dealer, I think, probably since they inaugurated that at RV Business. But you also get the Blue Ribbon Award every year because you do other stuff. Talk about the importance of that to the employees, not you guys that own it and run it, but what's the importance of that being top 50, Blue Ribbon, and the respect that you get in the industry?
So for sure, So how this award works, a little bit of backstory on it is you can't just submit your own application. You have to be nominated by one of the other partners in the industry, whether it's a manufacturer or whoever. So we've been very fortunate to be nominated each year that the award's been around the top 50. And like you said, Bob, we've been part of the top 50 each year that it's been awarded. We've been recognized as a blue ribbon dealer, a top 5 dealer twice, and then we won the Innovation Award a few years ago. And you're right, it's something that is much more important to us internally, I think, than it is to the consumer. It might be important to the consumer, but to us internally, it's the team's prideful. There's no other way to say it on what we do and how we try to differentiate ourselves. How we try to differentiate ourselves with our customer service programs. And like I said before, I know we're not perfect, that we make mistakes, but as far as I know, we're the only large multi-dealership chain in the industry that actually pays all of their managers based on their customer satisfaction scores. I believe that we're the only one that does that. We actually track them. They're on all of our scoreboards. We have digital scoreboards, and right next to other metrics is the CSI. It's not hidden. It's not something else. We have a We Care program where we have dedicated people that care, and they listen to consumers and they try to help them out. And so when we're recognized as doing good for our industry and being a good community participant, that's really important to us. Internally, it's kind of like we're on the right track. We're continuing to get a little bit better each year. And that is important to us. I think the team takes some pride in that.
So Ben, with 28 locations, we were joking couple years ago or last year at the Boston show. The sign said 14 and you'd already gotten 15. And I said, you know what, why don't you just stop using numbers? I don't know if I was joking with you or Ted or somebody, but with 28 stores, do you know how many brands you're dealing with? And I know you don't have the same brand at all the different stores, but how many different manufacturers are you dealing with 28 properties?
It depends on how you define brand, right? And what I mean by that is you can look at brands a little bit differently. So, for example, you can
manufacturer. I should say.
Yeah, Keystone's like a manufacturer. Yeah. Under Thor, and they have a bunch of brands, same thing with Coach or whoever. So depending on how you measure it, we're somewhere around 30, and you could look at it and say you guys have way more than that. I'll agree with you, or way less than that. I'll agree with you, depending on how you measure it.
Yeah.
So that's been a really conscientious effort of ours, is to actually be a better partner for fewer manufacturers and try to partner with manufacturers that truly care about the customer side of it. There are certain manufacturers that are fantastic at the back end parts and warranty support. That's really important to us. It's something that we measure and try to do a really good job of. And we try to partner with those best brands in the industry. We don't have the same everywhere, but I think we have some really unbelievable partners. Don't
tell us the bad ones, but just throw a couple of the good ones that come to mind without even thinking that.
Well, I'll go back to Forrest RVs, right? So Jayco is a huge one. We're trying to grow our partnership with Jayco. We have them in several stores. They're a great company. They've been able to maintain their culture through this. Obviously, I traveled into Grand Design. I believe in their story and what they do for their customers. Rockwood is another brand we have in New England. We do great with. Coachman, we have a great relationship with the Coachman team and their parts and service support. If I keep on going, I'm going to offend somebody. Yeah. So I almost want to stop because I'm going to get into trouble if I keep this going. So the little voice on my shoulder saying, "Ben, stop right now before you."
See, Ben, you obviously have been too busy tending to RV business the last 2 days and probably haven't had a chance to watch Amy Coney Barrett, how she answered all the questions. Every time they tried to pin it to a corner, she had one answer, and no matter how many times John would ask it in 20 different ways, this is it. But you already got yourself into it a little bit. So yeah,
he's way smarter than me, John. So
you probably stop while you're ahead.
Andy writes, it's amazing how many in RV management or sales do not use their products. So I'm glad to hear that you do, because Bob and I have run into people at the manufacturing level where they want nothing to do with their product. They just, why would I want to use my own product? Why would I want to go to a campground and let people know who I am. You know, and I know you carry Tiffin in some of your products, in some of your facilities, but we look at Bob Tiffin and say, you know, that's really, you know, maybe it's just too old-fashioned that he actually travels in his own unit and goes to shows to meet people. But you know, again, another family. They'd be the largest family-owned manufacturer.
Yes,
I would think so.
Tiffin?
Yeah, independently owned. Yeah, it's still privately owned. You may be in trouble with Estelle Drew, Ben. If you remember, she's bought 3 units from you.
Yeah,
She's going to buy the next unit from you. She's a big NASCAR and Kevin Harvick fan. So what does one of your customers have to do to get a Kevin Harvick autographed picture?
Buy her 4th.
I hate to say this, but
there you go. There you go, Estelle. Now she didn't ask for it. She
you guys are going to get me in trouble.
Kevin Harvick. She didn't ask for it. I threw that in about the picture. But you're right. Maybe if she buys the 4th, she'll get to go to the championship race.
So I don't know if you guys know how sponsorships work, but I don't think they quite work that way. So
no, you don't pick up
No,
Kevin, I need
like this. Send money.
No, honestly, he's a great partner, but
Ben,
but we don't have unlimited autographs from him.
see, this is the difference between you big corporations and the big NASCAR and everything. Anybody that calls us up and wants an autographed picture of John and I, we put it in the mail to them.
We have to get them taken first because nobody's wanted one yet. But Ben, I think on your desk, even though it's in your home office, Bob, we need to get a picture of us so that next time we have Ben on, there's a picture of us in the background saying, you were a great guest. Thank you for sticking with us during our 30-minute rain delay.
Perfect. So if you guys send me that picture, I will have it in the background next time I'm on the show.
We're going to take Bob. Get over here right after the show. We'll email it to you tonight.
Perfect.
We're in two different locations.
Does Christopher Roy work for you?
Does who?
Christopher Roy says awesome.
Yeah. He's our service manager in our Kingston, New Hampshire location. Been with us for a long time. Great teammate. Leads a great culture in his shop. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I hope he's on our mailing list. I put this up on because you have grown so much from when I first met your grandfather and grandmother years ago, and it's 54 years now. And all of a sudden it sprouted up, and there was a few more in New England, and all of a sudden you went nationwide. You got 28 dealerships. I suspect you're not done yet. And I don't expect you to let the cat out of the bag on some of your future plans, but let's assume you're not stopping and you got where you want to go. Give us an idea of what you look when you buy businesses, what you look for. And, you know, we certainly appreciate what you recognize with Forrest RV and Marines, because we have, as I said in the promo, we have 2 great New England companies getting together. But talk a little bit about your acquisition strategy. Yeah,
it's a really great question. So, as you know,
John hates it. John hates it when somebody says, "Bob, that's a great question." You
know? So we grow, as you know, you've seen us grow. We grow through acquisitions and then by just building new dealerships, right? And we do both and alternate them a little bit because there's, I guess we're picky about the acquisitions. To your point, what do we look at? Well, probably the number one thing that we look at is cultural fit. And so like the DNA of how the dealership feels, how do they feel, like what's their personality towards customer service? What's the previous ownership looked at as, is this really a means to them making money and eventually cashing out? Or has this been a passion of theirs where that's through to the employees and they've invested back in their employees and it's a well-known dealership in the area, and that's really important to us. And I'll just say that, you know, when you acquire dealerships, you learn a lot of lessons, and we found that the best dealerships for us are the ones where the cultures just fit really, really tight right from day one, where the people we start talking to them about our mission, vision, and values, especially our values. They're super important to us, and they believe in that. And they say, yeah, that's maybe you guys have a little bit more, documented than my previous owner did, but that's exactly what we believe, right? Those dealerships come on board. There's very few challenges. They got to learn the systems because we're a bigger company. No big deal. We learn the systems, but they integrate really well. So that's what we look for now, is we look for really good fits. And in some markets, we find them, and those fits are great. And in other markets, sometimes we just want to grow the market, and we'll just build a dealership. And in other markets, there may not be a fit right now or a fit at all, and we'll build a dealership that way too. So to answer your first question on, are we planning on stopping our growth strategy? The answer is no. Really, it comes down to something as simple as we think that we provide a better alternative in the marketplace.
So Ben, I see the connection of the 95 connection going all the way from New Hampshire to Florida.
Yep.
But where the heck does North or South Dakota come in?
So it's kind of a funny story, actually. So
that's a good question.
It is a great question, Joe.
4-1.
It comes in when you take a detour to Petro.
So in our industry, without going into it, so dealers are part of consulting groups. They call them 20 groups. So you end up with dealers that are outside of your market. Yep. And Capital RV was on our 20 group, obviously well outside of our market. Got to know their ownership and their management structure, and got to know them really well. So from the story I was told was the owner was getting ready to retire. And it was actually a partnership, but the owner operator was getting ready to retire, and his GMs, they were talking about it. And one of the GMs said, well, we really like those guys over at Campers Inn. So if you decide to sell, we'd really like you to sell to them. And to us, it's a huge compliment, right? And that's a perfect example of one of the companies that we brought on board and integrated fantastically right from day one. So that one was just a relationship that we already had with a great team and a great culture that made sense. Usually, you're right. We're kind of going the north-south corridor, started on 95, now working on, the further ones out. We're kind of working on 65 with Louisville and Madison, Huntsville. That's kind of the 65. We'll continue to build there, but absolutely, that's been our strategy.
Well, the 95 becomes really important because we know a lot of people in New England head south in the wintertime, so you can service them along the way. And if the guys harder and have a problem, they visit one of your facilities in Florida. That must be a big, I won't say it's a big part of your business, but certainly it's a big draw for customers that like to travel up and down the East Coast.
For sure it helps. There's no question our customers stop at our various locations. We train our team that if you bought from one Campers Inn, you bought from all the Campers Inns. So we're going to take care of you. And that's a huge part of the strategy, is being able to deliver that customer service wherever they travel.
Well, especially the New Englanders that head south, they don't head to, west because it's still, Phoenix would be still too far out, that type of thing. But like Myrtle's even an example. It's not on 95, but it's a New England destination for vacationers.
It is. Yeah, Myrtle Beach that's been a good one for us. We actually, I'm going to get my dates mixed up. So a year or two ago, I can't remember exactly when, we actually bought a mobile service company in Myrtle Beach. And part of that was we just wanted to do a better job taking care of our customers in Myrtle Beach. I wanted to learn some lessons about mobile service and how do you do mobile service well. How do you really take care of the customer that way? So sometimes my positions aren't of these big dealerships. Sometimes it's, hey, we want to do this because we need to learn some more about it. And that was the purchase with Camping Connection.
Now, did you build another facility yet in Myrtle, or you're still on 17?
Stay tuned.
Okay. Let me get caught up. We're having a great conversation here. Chris Andrews says he closed down. He apologized for being late, Chris. Chris closed out his camping season. He's out there.
Not as folks. If you're reading, he didn't close down I Kill this weekend. Right.
And Chris went through the whole thing, but he did say that if we go down to Rhode Island next year, he will treat us to some Rhode Island lobsters. which are not as good as Maine lobsters. But if Chris is treating and he's paying for it, we'll probably take him up on it. Roy, all right, Randy Adams. Randy hasn't been there for a while. Good friend Randy, who does our direct mails for the Boston show and does a lot of work with our dealers. I know he does a lot of work with Campers Inn. He says, "Great show, gentlemen. Enjoying listening to all three of you." No, Randy. You're supposed to say, "I enjoy listening to Bob and Ben," and leave it at that and let John figure out what the problem is. Don Hawes is on. Sorry to miss you guys tonight. Well, yeah, I know you're in recovery with your shoulder surgery, Don, so hopefully you're feeling well. And Wayne McAleef is a great company to work for. Great. So that's great. Well, we know that. Yeah.
Hey, are these guys watching the show on company time or on their own?
It's 8:25, so even in North Dakota, it's still after hours.
Yeah, they might be putting in OT. Watch their payroll.
We're, believe it or not, we're down to the last 4 hours. Somehow we managed to salvage the show. So thank you, Ben, for, as John says, sticking with us during the rain delay. But what have we left out, or what things would you like our fans to know about Campers Inn that maybe we just didn't squeeze into the show tonight?
I don't know. I mean, we could talk about a couple things. One is, one of the reasons why I was excited to be on the show is, once again, just thank the Flanders family, Bruce and Sue, for trusting in us. And we do look forward to moving forward with them. So I want to make sure I recognize them for that. That's important.
Yep.
Bruce is still, we don't know where Bruce is. We know Derek checked in and we know Sue checked in.
Well, he's sitting next to Sue. He didn't know how to run the computer, so he gets up every now and then and gets Sue a glass of wine, and just does it that way.
You guys are brutal on him. But
you what? Sue's going to pop up here and say, "Bruce, go get me another glass of wine, please."
Well, let's see if she's still watching.
Huh? Well, that's true. Yeah.
Still watching, yeah. Exactly.
All right, what else do we leave out besides that? And I appreciate you recognizing them and
Ben,
with that they're now your fifth location in New England.
Yes.
So all of our nerve to dealers, you got the most locations now.
Ben, give us all your locations give us all 28.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's almost like the brands I was talking about.
I know.
Randy Adams would have a better chance of giving you all 28 locations than Ben would.
Yeah,
Sue said, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Now, I'm confused, Sue. I'm not sure if you mean that he's not
her word.
Yeah.
Derek,
yeah.
He's in Maine doing car things. Okay. Derek,
all right.
Who's in Maine?
Derek bailed the old man out. He'll watch it tomorrow when he's sitting in the office.
Yeah.
Ben, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure to see you, and it's great that our fans get to know you a little bit better and know a little bit more about Campers Inn. John, any closing comments before we let Ben close it out?
Especially hanging on while we had our technical. Well, let's call it a rain delay, because it could have been easy for you to say, "Look, I got a million other things to do. Let's just do this another time." But I know he wanted to stay on with me.
Well, it's no problem, guys, and appreciate the invite. In all seriousness, and allowing me to tell the Campers Inn story.
Great. All right, we'll see you down the road. Best of luck, Ben. Keep the good stuff going, and we'll talk to you later on.
Awesome.
And folks, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure down below to hit the subscribe button, and then every week when we do these shows, you'll get a notification of it and have it sent to you directly. So subscribe to us, and you'll be happy you did.
And don't forget to share it.
And share it on Facebook as well.
Share it on. All right. Thanks, guys. Good night, everybody. See you next week.